Hi everyone and welcome back to the garden. If you've seen any of the previous videos, you'll know that for me, it's the plants with the big leaves that really scream jungle, and those are the plants that I especially enjoy growing. Plants like the Gunner manicata behind me, the Ensete banana with its huge paddle-like leaves, Musabastu, Tetrapanax. There's so many of these amazing huge plants that really make a statement in your garden with absolutely monstrous leaves. But not every plant in the garden is big, and to create that jungle effect, you need to include a variety of plants. So from the biggest plant, the Gunner manicata, we're now going to look at the smallest plant in the garden, which is this one here. The common name for it is mind your own business. So this is the plant in a 9cm pot, and it's not a plant that I actually tend to grow in pots. I have it dotted throughout the garden in a variety of different spaces. And obviously the little terracotta pot in the thumbnail, that's just there for novelty value, but you're more than welcome to do that if you've got maybe a little doll's house you want to green up a bit, or you've got a small dog who's already got a big dog complex and you really want to feed into that. It's entirely up to you. But mainly it's a plant that I grow here around the garden, and it thrives in those dark, shady, wet places. So anywhere that's moist, anywhere that ferns and hostas they enjoy growing, this plant will enjoy growing too. A word of warning though, once you introduce it into your garden, it's there. So if you're someone who has a really neat formal garden with a lawn that's absolutely immaculate, this probably isn't the plant I'd introduce, because once it gets into that lawn, it can spread and spread and spread, and you only need the tiniest little bit of it, and then it's in. But anyway, enough of the sort of bad sort of warnings. Why would you want to grow it in your garden? So one point I've already touched on in previous videos is that one of the easiest ways to create a jungle effect is to have plants overlap borders, to try to soften the edges of your garden and try to make the materials sort of blend in with the garden. And it's the easiest way of making your garden feel like it's been there a lot longer than it has. So for that, this plant is absolutely perfect, because here in this small pot, I put a tiny little sprig, and within 4 weeks, 6 weeks, it's already started to expand over the edges. So already you can't see the edges of that pot. So I basically try to recreate that effect on a larger scale. And here in the garden, I've got it growing at the base of tree ferns, just sort of softening that edge and making it appear more natural. I've got it against the brick wall, I've got it against stones, boulders, next to a pond as well. If you've got any of those sort of things dotted around in your garden, any natural stone, it's a fantastic plant to really sort of make it look like it's part of a jungle, part of a real environment, and like it's been there for a lot longer than it has. I think the other thing a lot of people want in the gardens is evergreen and green ground cover, and you don't get any more green and ground covery, that's definitely a word, than these. And for me, using these instead of something like a persicaria, it definitely has its place. So persicaria, they're a fantastic ground cover. I've done a video all about them and how easy they are to propagate, spread around your garden, how tough they are, but they do grow quite tall, so they can actually get in the way of the plants you're actually wanting to show off. Whereas plants like this and European ginger, there's a lot of ground cover plants that do stay fairly small, fairly compact. They form that green sort of mat that other plants can push through, and it really shows them off. So this, with any kind of fern, looks absolutely fantastic. Compared to the huge leaves of the Gunner then, or maybe the bright red flowers of something like a canna, something like this, it is a bit underwhelming. But once it's established in your garden, once it's crept all over that stone and just sort of dangled into the water in your water features, I think it looks absolutely incredible, and it definitely gives your garden that instant jungle vibe. You don't have to think big with leaves. Something like this, it's definitely got the green, and it's definitely going to give you the look that you want in. So, other than being in a shady, damp spot, what else do you need to do to look after it? The easy answer is pretty much nothing. As long as it's got a shady spot, and as long as you don't let it completely dry out, it's really easy going, and it's pretty much going to spread and spread and spread anywhere it can grow. So whether that's a plus or a minus to you, who knows? It depends on the space you've got in mind for it and how wild you're willing to let your garden go. But for me, it's the perfect plant just to put in the shady borders and just let it do its thing. Let it spread around, and overall, it's more of a green border then, and you don't see any soil, which, as I mentioned in my last video, you don't want to see soil. That's definitely one of the main goals of my garden style. So it's a fantastic plant to grow, and also it's very easy to propagate. And it literally is as easy as take a little bit out your garden. What I do is I have a seed tray, just fill it with damp sort of compost, or you can do it straight into pots, put the tiny sort of sprig in the middle of the pot, and within a month, as long as you keep it reasonably well watered, it spreads and you get another plant like this. And when it comes to potting this in the garden, you don't even have to dig a big hole. You can pretty much just rip the top part of this out, press it into the soil, and it'll grow there. And this is a great time of year to get it planted in your garden, because it's got autumn, when the soil's still warm, there's plenty of rain, there's definitely going to be rain. It'll definitely help it settle in quicker, and it'll establish itself before winter. And when winter does come, it's not a plant you need to worry about protecting. Obviously, It's not the hardiest of plants in terms of frost damage, and when it's somewhere exposed, it can blacken when the frosts come, but it's a very hard plant to actually kill. So although it might take some damage during those hard frosts that we might have, come spring, it'll be like winter never happened and be full of lush green leaves. So it's a really helpful plant, a really easy to grow plant. You can even grow it as a house plant as well and have these amazing little mounds of foliage in pots. You can get different shades of green, and I think it's a fantastic plant to include in your garden. It's not one I've talked about much before now, and it's definitely not a plant you'd see in the garden centre and it would immediately think tropical, but it's certainly a plant that's another part, it's another piece of the puzzle that when you combine together, it really helps create that lush tropical jungle garden that me personally I'm trying to create here. So I hope it's a plant that you want to grow in your garden. It shouldn't be too hard to get hold of this one either. There should be plenty on eBay, Google it, and they're not very expensive. So there's no need to buy loads of pots of it. Just get a couple, put them in the places you want them to grow, and by early spring, you'll be able to split those up and move them further around the garden. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.